There is one. Yeah. No, well, yeah, that one. Can't see us. But...
Okay, you should be good to go, Dominic.
Okay, very good. I want to welcome everybody to the Newington Town Planning and Zoning Commission meeting for September 28th, 2022. And if everybody could rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America,
and to the republic for which one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. If Noreen's on, if you could do the roll call, please.
I certainly can. Chairman Payne,
Here.
Commissioner Claffey, Commissioner Haggerty,
Here.
Commissioner Havens,
Here.
Commissioner Linares,
Here.
Commissioner Trister,
Here.
Commissioner Woods,
Here.
Commissioner Braverman, Commissioner Droz,
Here.
Commissioner Gill.
Here.
Okay, you're all set.
Okay, thank you. And I think
You're welcome.
Commissioner Clark is here.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
Yep.
Renata, do we have, that's it. We don't have any appointments. No alternates need to be appointed.
No.
So we'll move on to the approval of the agenda, and I believe everything is all set for the agenda.
Mr. Chair, there are no changes to the agenda.
Okay, thank you. We'll go to public participation. If there's anybody from the public wishing to speak within the Zoom application, raise your hand if you'd like to participate during public participation. If calling into Zoom meeting by telephone, dial *9 to raise your hand to be recognized. Use *6 when recognized to speak by telephone. And if you could state your name and address for the record. Is there anybody from the audience there or on Zoom that would like to say something?
Nobody has their hand raised on Zoom right now, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, thank you. Okay, hearing none, if there's no objection, we'll move to remarks by commissioners. Do any commissioners have any remarks? Okay, hearing none, we're going to go to our first public hearing. And before that, we do that, if I could have the Secretary Havens read the procedures for the public hearing, please.
Certainly, Mr. Chairman. Procedures for public hearings. The order of proceedings at public hearings shall be as follows. A, convening by chairperson. B, reading of the notice by the commission secretary or commissioner designated by the chairperson to act in their stead. C, presentation by applicant. D, town planner report on the application. E, persons wishing to speak in favor of the application, limited to 3 minutes per person. F, persons wishing to speak in opposition to the application, limited to 3 minutes per person. G, rebuttal by the applicant, limited to 5 minutes total. During a public hearing, it shall be within the discretion of the chairperson whether the time limitations should be varied slightly, provided the commission consents to any such variance by a majority vote.
Thank you, Commissioner Havens. And our first petition is petition 36-22, a special permit, section 3.176 for recreational use, training institute and gym in the industrial zone at 385 Stam Road. Applicant Pro Performance Network, owner RPG Stam LLC, contact Kevin Rival. If the applicant is there, if you could come up and tell us a little bit about what you're planning on doing, I'd greatly appreciate it.
Mr. Chairman, if I got questions, you say Commissioner Claffey's on Zoom?
I thought I saw him. I
Okay,
could be
he's on
wrong.
the other side then. Okay.
Could you send him a
I'll move.
message?
Yeah, I'll move him over.
Thank you very much, Eric.
Sorry, go ahead with your presentation. Apologize.
So thank you very much. We are looking to open a indoor athletic facility on Stam Road. We currently coach travel baseball teams. So it would be a facility that is primarily baseball focused, and we're looking to have a gym, a quarter basketball court indoors, and then about 6 to 8 batting cages inside. So it's really just indoor training athletic facility to house players from all over. It's open to the public that want to come train. It's open to the high school. It's open to obviously Newington players, but our AAU baseball teams would use it as an indoor practice facility during inclement weather times. And then it's open to personal trainers. It's open to people that give private lessons. It's open to any students or anybody that's involved in Parks and Rec. I grew up in Newington. I went to Newington High School and played 3 different sports at Newington, something that we've always wanted to do when we were younger. There just wasn't really a place like it when we were younger. So from my experience in the past, going to a training facility, the only thing that was really available was something that was like the Berlin batting cages. So we have experience with the ATI and Cromwell Athlete Training Institute is another one of the other businesses that we sold. So we just had an opportunity to hopefully open our new location and just make it available to the public. And it's for space rental. It's the uniqueness of the space allows it to be utilized by other sports. So Parks and Rec, if there's an inclement weather situation, or soccer teams, field hockey, whatever it is, it's the ceiling height doesn't have to be just specifically a baseball related space. So it's not necessarily like a banquet rental type of place, like a party or a laser tag kind of thing. It's just more focused on athletic development. And we've been coaching teams probably for the last 8 to 10 years with a focus on trying to get kids scholarships for the most part. So a lot of our players, including Newington players now, that we start coaching at a young age from 12 and 13 years old and try to get them connected with the appropriate school that we think that they're going to academically fit with and athletically fit with, and get them an opportunity to showcase their abilities in front of the next level. And it's pretty straightforward, but it's not specifically, they're separate entities in terms of the teams that we coach and the building itself. The building is anybody that would like to use the gym, anybody that would like to bring their children down to train, anybody that would like to use it themselves. It's completely open to the public. It's not just our AAU organization type of thing. So,
Mr. Chair, if I may, through you as the applicant, just to state for the record, the name and the address. We need your name and the address, please, for the record. Of the business, yes.
It's going to be named the Pro Performance Network.
Your name?
My name is Marcus Hill, MARCUSHILL.
Thanks.
Okay, anything else, Marcus, that you'd like to add?
No, that's it. Thank you very much.
Okay, why don't we, is there any commissioners that have any questions?
Mr. Droz has a question.
Mr. Hill, quick question. Difference of policy from Newington from ATI. I noticed on the amended parking letter that got sent out, that you'd said, parents of children that will be dropped off and then picked up by parents, so they're not gonna need to park.
Yes.
How has that changed policy-wise on your part from when you were in Cromwell?
The situation in Cromwell was, there wasn't necessarily assigned parking at ATI. The lot, the specific unit that ATI was in the building, if you're familiar with the location.
Very.
But it was how it was kitty cornered there. So there were some people that parked around the corner that was like on the advanced window side, and there were some people that parked on the first garage bay side, but it wasn't necessarily allocated toward ATI. This specific building, the other thing is that they had the cage over there with folks that were using it for like MMA training. They had a gym around the corner that was another tenant, and those businesses the operations were running like concurrently, so the parking lot was pretty jammed. At STAM, none of the hours of operation overlap. So I don't think that every single individual that brings their child to Pro Performance Network is going to necessarily drop them off, because the majority of the kids that we work with are high school age children. Obviously, kids that are too young to have their license aren't going to drive there, so they might get dropped off, but parents could potentially stay there. But our hours of operation are after the two existing tenants are already closed. So the parking lot that exists now at STAM is way bigger than the one, well, it's probably similar in size, but there's not going to be any existing tenants that are there when Pro Performance Network is open.
There's been no policy change from Cromwell, at least as far as you guys, from Cromwell to Newington?
I don't believe so, no. It's not, we're not implementing a policy to the customers that say you have to drop your children off and leave. I just think that if you're coming in for, let's say, a pitching clinic at 9:30 in the morning on a Saturday, there's going to be no other existing vehicles there, because none of the other businesses are open at, like, there's no hours of operation for the existing tenants at eDrive or for the other one.
One more question, if you don't mind.
Oh, for sure. Please.
Are you planning on, I know you mentioned Parks and Rec, and it was through Newington Little League that I've been to ATI
Yes.
dozens of times.
Yeah.
Are you still planning on having at least the availability?
That's exactly what I want to do.
Okay, so whether it be
So
batting
right,
cages.
specifically right now, and this is like a separate issue, but so our organization, in terms of our AAU teams, we have several. We have several age groups. We have two 18s, a 15, a 13, and a 12. Our teams right now, our 18s, our 15s, and our 13s are getting ready to start practice right now at Legends.
Mhm.
That's from 7:30 to 9. So what I want to do with any Little League, doesn't necessarily have to be Newington exclusively, but this is, I mean, I was one of the first classes to play at Volunteer, so right when it was being built. So it's very important to me personally to make sure that Newington kind of has that, not advantage, but I know that there are a lot of youth organizations that have teams that don't necessarily have an indoor facility.
Mhm.
So we don't necessarily specialize at 12 and under. So Newington Little League specifically, it's not a situation where we're looking for those kids to be part of our travel baseball situation. We're like 13 and older. So for them specifically to be able to utilize that indoor space, if there's a weather situation, or if they just want to have team practices Wednesday night, Volunteer is going to be bad, or E-Green is going to be bad, and we know there's going to be rain. Can we utilize this indoor space? We've already been contacted by the town of West Hartford to see if we can compete with the deal that they had at a place in Bloomfield last year for 3 or 4 times a month for like 6 hours at a time. That's exactly what we want to do.
The reason why I was asking was because the way Little League had utilized it, and the reason why I'd been there so many times, was either for batting cages,
Correct.
where there'd be a couple of teams there at a time, rotating through batting cages
Right.
for an hour, hour and a half. And then the next time slot back, say from 6 to 7 or 6 to 7:30.
Yep.
And then 2 more teams would show up 7:30 to 9. Or the real big event was for tryouts before spring, because you're talking,
Correct.
it's still cold out,
Yep.
which is even more people.
So we're gonna have that specific, not challenge, but we're already talking about it now in terms of, we're playing fall baseball right now. It's going to wrap up. The kids that are high school age, we're probably gonna wrap that season up. The last event we're gonna have is October 23rd. We're going to a camp at UConn. And that'll be the last thing. Then the following weekend, I'm gonna book Legends for the 29th to have tryouts, weather permitting.
Mhm.
Now, if we're in an inclement weather situation, obviously, because it gets to that point, then we'll have to move it indoors. Now, obviously, our facility's not completed yet because we're still in the stage, but right now we're using, Dave Swanson's a good friend of ours. So on the other side of Dave's facility is Elite Soccer Performance. We've outfitted that situation as a temporary stopgap to, if we need to move inside, we had, just an offensive batting practice last night inside Elite Soccer Performance. So it's going to specifically be for those things. That the layout of the space itself, the reason that it appeals to us is because there are specific areas where we can draw the nets back, and it is an enormous open space for ground balls, long tossing, pitcher throwing programs, all of these things that don't necessarily, they are being used in Little League, but for things exactly like that. That's what I mean by, it doesn't have to be like our team just practicing.
Right.
We
Yeah,
want
yeah.
Little League to come in and we want to teach a throwing program about how to keep your arms safe. The uniqueness of the layout is that we can have somebody in a specific space doing a specific thing, and then in a whole different space of the building, we'd be having a team practice, and they don't interfere with each other. So
Yeah, the biggest concern, and I don't know if you've processed it or, is not from the AAU aspect, but literally from a parking aspect.
Yep.
Because to put with that overlap.
Yep.
4 teams worth of people and all the parents dropping off, and especially if you're talking Newington teams or out of town teams, and even with Newington, it would have, as long as I coached, easily half the parents would just stand there and watch.
Yeah,
You're not,
that's the layout of the space indoors. We're going to try to specifically have that not happen, because the majority of the space, the way that it's laid out, is going to be used for, it's just going to be occupied. So we're not necessarily, not saying that we don't want people to stay, because obviously if you have small children and we're doing a clinic, we want you to stay if you'd like to, and if you want to retain some of the information to use it on the side for yourself. We're not saying drop your kids off and leave. But that's also primarily going to be my job, is managing the schedule and making sure that we're not in a situation where we have like that. That probably is the number one concern for everybody, is just making sure if there's 50 allocated parking spaces, is just making sure that we don't have overlapping times. So if I can schedule 9U, let's say, some of the sponsors, I played on Cable when I was in Little League. That was my sponsor. But if I schedule Cable's tryout from 9 to 11, and then PAC is coming in at 11:30, 11:45, so I can make sure that people have time, so they're not all there at the same time. Because our double headers get scheduled that way now, where there's got to be a 15 to 20 minute time period in between, so that if we're in a tournament, people can leave and the next team can show up. But I don't have a specific policy right now in place that says you have to drop your kids off and leave. But that's obviously something that's at the top of the priority list in terms of making sure the parking lot doesn't get crowded.
Gotcha. Because 52 spaces will fill up instantly.
Yeah.
Instantly.
And
All right. I don't have any more questions. Thank
Any other commissioners have any questions?
Yes, as far as the parking, is the parking lot lined for parking?
Yes, it is.
Is all of the area utilized?
for parking? I mean, because that used to be a distribution place, right?
Well, that's a really good point. That's outside the scope of like, not my knowledge, but there is a large portion of the parking lot that is not lined. The space, the asphalt space is not being maximized for parking spaces, just basically out of a lack of need for them right now, would be my guess. Creed, the tenant all the way at the end is a very large space. And from what I understand, they have like less than 10 employees. So there's almost no vehicles there for that building. And even E-Drive on the left, the majority of the vehicles park around that center island on the front or back, but there's tons of square footage that like up to the garage space. Obviously those need to stay open for deliveries, but there are a lot of spaces, just a lot of square footage that is not lined that could potentially be lined, but that's not something that I was thought that I had the authority to recommend to everybody. There's just a lot of space that people could park vehicles that they're not right now, if that was.
Any other questions? Anything else, Commissioner Gill?
No, well, just, is there any plans of expanding this to have games of, actual other sports
Yes.
besides baseball?
Yes.
Flag football or?
100%. The challenge with industrial spaces, we've looked at several, is finding a great deal of clear space on the inside without poles or beams. The layout of Pro Performance Network, the beams are 40 feet separated. So you have to get creative in terms of the way that you're going to lay out batting cages and whatnot. We have a plan we'd like to have an indoor winter baseball league because they're with the technology and hit tracks and things like that, you can basically play a game without necessarily having fielders. But there is enough long space to have like a youth soccer game or a field hockey game or a youth lacrosse game or even like a flag football or midget football tackle. It is big enough for that. And then obviously the long-term plan would be to potentially open up another facility. But we don't necessarily want to stop at this one particular location. We'd like to look for more locations that potentially have more clear space on the inside. So we could hypothetically have a whole soccer field without any poles in the wall or in the way, or a whole infield where we can, have like an infield outfield practice without having to worry about poles or anything.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions from other commissioners? I'll go to Renata, if you'd like to, either you or Eric give a staff report.
Sure. So I'm kind of two minds on this application. And I will start by saying that I am a huge supporter of the proposed use in this location. I think it is going to re-energize this building and it will bring life to the end of this cul-de-sac, and it will, I think, bring life to the side of the town that kind of needs it too. And it will bring, in my mind, a little bit hope to that town line plaza, which is struggling a bit, and it may kind of revitalize that section of the town. I think this use is really good in the location. As you see in the proposed draft motions, however, we recommended that you keep the hearing open, and the reason for that is that we received this information in response to our comments with regards to parking that indicate this is a 65,000 square foot building that has on the site 52 available parking spaces that are striped. The parking lot is huge. It's not huge, it's large. It does have a lot of paving, so it does have some potential for additional parking spaces, but those are not lined, they're not shown. And without actually some site plan modifications and some delineations on site, it is inadvisable for people to just randomly park everywhere because they will be perhaps in a way of emergency vehicles, in a way of these large trucks that are perhaps up to the loading docks, things of that nature. So before people can just park on unmarked spaces, it is strongly recommended that these spaces are lined and shown on a site plan that's approved by the commission. So that being said, just a minute. There is a business that has 22 employees that closes at 5:00 p.m. There is another business that has 11 employees that closes at 3:30 p.m. The proposed business opens at 3 p.m. We had done an inspection today. We went to the site today at earlier in the day, and then we went by at around 3:30 p.m. About 80% of that parking lot was full with car. So at 3:30 p.m., that parking lot was really filled. End of that cul-de-sac also has other businesses on it. And my concern is that if this parking situation is not remedied somehow, and there are some options that we can perhaps recommend the applicant considers, there will be people that will park at the cul-de-sac blocking access to these other businesses that are also still operational. At 3:30, everybody was still there. So, you could potentially block access and exit for people trying to get off work and these trucks that are trying to get in and out. So that's why we would recommend that you hold the hearing open until either we can kind of show a plan that shows some of the area of parking that are striped for additional parking. Perhaps there is a bunch of businesses on that street that actually had vacant parking spaces. So another opportunity would be to approach one of the neighbors and get one of these parking agreements where perhaps you can ask them to agree to allow, in case you ever have a need for additional parking, to allow you to have 20 parking spaces. Because there is at least 3 or 4 businesses that we saw with empty parking spaces, but they're private. So, it would have to be an agreement like that. So with all that being said, you received the supplemental documents. I'm going to leave it to you and to how you feel about this. I really want, and I did express this to the applicant, I really feel strongly that this would be an excellent use at this location, and I really want them to move there. So I don't want this to be some kind of a big block for them. But this parking thing, we went there today and I was so hoping that nobody was there, and I was just going to come here and say, parking is not an issue. It's a property management matter anyways. The property owner has in his best interest to issue his leases so that his tenants manage that. And I believe that that's always the case, right? So the tenants manage that. But just on an off chance, because these times when these businesses end and this business start overlap a little bit, there is those 2 hours that could be potentially a problem, and a problem to businesses around them. That's what kind of gave me a little bit of, hesitation.
So I don't know the format or this is not a rebuttal or anything like that. But one important piece, and I think you guys can probably look into this, but from what I understand, what I was told specifically from the owners are from Reno, is that in eDrive's lease agreement, the first building on the right, they have an agreement that the parking lot is supposed to be repaved entirely in 2023, which it's got nothing to do with me because that's in there. I think they were the original tenant. So it's agreement that they made, but that could potentially create an opportunity where it can be not redesigned, but the lines at least, if the entire parking lot is going to be repaved, then they could hypothetically look at the layout of the parking spaces to maximize, to potentially create more spaces. I don't know if there's documentation that would indicate that, or, you know, it's something that you guys could potentially look into, but that's what we were told. Because the primary issue, to be completely transparent with us as tenants, was the fact that we've been told on a number of occasions when we get like a 10-year rain, there's some flooding in the parking lot. And it potentially gets close to the garage bays, and had discussed potentially putting gym equipment right inside the garage bays because it makes the space really unique. But that was a concern of ours if we were going to get rain. So when we just got that really heavy rain a couple of weeks ago, I went by the space a number of different times to look at it during the day to see if the water was backing up. And then after that, we were told, well, we're repaving the parking lot next year anyway. So that could change things significantly.
Mr. Woods has a question.
Go ahead, Commissioner Woods.
Oh, thank you, Mr. Chairman. It's actually probably more to you, Renata. Is the existing parking lot big enough to accommodate additional spaces that would make the staff happy with if it was relined?
I think it could. The problem is that we would need to see those lines on a map because I need to show that to the fire marshal and I need to understand the traffic circulation on that parking lot once it's lined up. So as you enter the parking lot, there is a parking area that is lined up where people park. Then there is a fire hydrant. Then there is a potential for additional parking, I believe, but I'm not sure if people park there, if there would be sufficient turning radius for the fire truck to turn around there. So, you know, we would need to kind of see that actually on a map in order for me to know for sure that there is sufficient space without adding more parking.
And
I believe that there is, but I can't say that without engineering reviewing.
okay, do we know the number of spaces that we're looking for
50
the applicant to maintain?
for them as much as they need.
Yeah, so there's 50 spaces there now, correct?
52,
52.
yes.
So how many spaces would this applicant need to occupy 14,000 square feet?
So that is another question, right? So one of the things that we had asked of applicant was the size of these large events and then what happens with, you know, drop-offs and what is truly their parking needs generation. The statement in the supplemental memo is that they have 10 employees and they only need 10 parking spaces. From the applicant's testimony, I'm not sure that I received that message because there were statements that this will operate as a gym, that there will be students that drive themselves there. So clearly more than just 10 employees. So we don't really know. We didn't get that answer yet.
Mr. Chairman, if I can, I'd like to
Yes.
ask the applicant a question.
Absolutely.
As I understand it, Marcus, this is a training facility, right? So there's not really competition here and there shouldn't be competition moving forward. Teams aren't going to play against each other here, are you? You're teaching them how to pitch, how to bat.
We did also want to offer an option for teams to play each other.
Okay, then I think you're going to probably have to
But that would be on,
come up with
Excuse me.
a parking plan. Yes, go ahead, Mr. Chairman.
yeah, if you were gonna have, Marcus, if you were gonna have an event like that, would that be on a Saturday or a Sunday when the other businesses aren't operating?
Yes, so what the first thing that we want to propose competition wise is a high school baseball winter league where, let's say, Newington plays Weathersfield. And it's all, you know, it's all connected to a computer that gives you the data and tells you basically once there's a live pitcher with a catcher and an umpire and a live hitter, and then they just play out the at bat as they normally would in the game. And
Hello? Hello?
Yes, Dan. Yeah, let
Hello?
Marcus finish. Yeah, Dan, can you hold on 1 minute, let Marcus finish, then I'd be happy to have you speak.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Go ahead,
but
Marcus.
yeah, that would essentially be the end of it. So they would be playing a game, but it'd be contained inside a net. And because it's connected to hit tracks and there is a batted ball, but there's no fielders, there's no walks or anything, you'd hypothetically be able to play a 7-inning or a 9-inning game in about an hour and then schedule the next game, so there's no really overlap with people in the parking lot. But yes, I mean, ideally, we would want to have that at a time when there's no other cars in the parking lot.
Okay, thank you. Dan?
I'm getting some overlap here. I hear somebody else speaking.
This is the chairman, Dominic. Go right ahead if you have something.
Okay, what I'd like to say is that, we have,
His name.
Can we please get the name for the record and the address? Who is speaking?
Dan Garofalo, Reno Properties Group, 170 Payne Road, Newington, Connecticut.
Thank you.
Okay, so I've been hearing you guys talk about the parking and what's. Okay, so I've been listening to you guys talk about the parking and what's going on, but we have our own employees there. We probably have 50 employees that park there every day. In addition to Lennar's Landscaping that parks in our lot with an additional 10. I'm hearing a lot of feedback stuff.
Yes, it is a very bad connection. We're really having a hard time hearing your statements.
Hold on. There's another meeting. Hold on. Okay.
Board event. Hybrid meetings are not good.
Board events going on next door too.
Hold on. Yeah, we're getting that meeting on the same time. Can you hear Dan?
Yes.
Hi, Dan, talk. Can you talk?
Hi, this is Dan Garofalo. I'm with Reno Properties Group. We are the owners of the property at Stam Road. And I'm hearing about the parking and the situation, what's going on, but what I don't know the person speaking about the parking when they saw it. That's all our people. That's all our maintenance guys, our staff that's there parking every day that will be gone as soon as Marcus and his occupancy takes place. We also have Lennar's Landscaping, who we allow to park in our parking lot, that will not be allowed to park in the parking lot. So the parking lot will virtually be empty after 3:30. So I just want to make it clear that what you see when you go there is not really what's happening and what's going to be going on in the future. So just so you're aware of that, it's our people, it's our maintenance staff, our maintenance guys, plus Lennar's. They're not going to be there. So that parking is going to be virtually empty from 3:30 on.
So that opens up 25 spaces approximately?
That opens up all the parking. The parking is going to be completely vacant, available to Marcus and his team.
Okay. Well, you still have other tenants in the building.
No, we don't. They're all gone by 3:30. E-Drive is gone by 3:45. Creed is gone by 3:30. There's nobody there. So
all right.
It's only Marcus and his group.
Okay. Thank you very much. That was helpful.
Thank you.
Commissioners have any questions? Renata, do you have any?
Commissioner Rhodes has a question, Chairman.
Go ahead.
Just wanting, obviously, we're going to keep the hearing open, but impressing upon how many spaces we're going to be maxing out at. Only because, and I don't know if anyone else at the table has, but I've been to ATI a lot, and especially for spring tryouts. I went there this morning to look at parking spaces. That lot in Cromwell is easily twice the size of the one on Stam Road. And I mean, counting spaces for counting spaces.
Is it lined now?
Middle is not, but that would be double wide where people would park, plus the lines that we're against, as well as coming around the corner. And for spring tryouts, you couldn't get in the parking lot. It was full. I drive 2 pickup trucks and I would go half an hour early so that I could fit, like literally. You know what I mean?
Doing
So-
lessons and all that.
Yeah. I'm saying the worst would be spring tryouts, you know? So the question really becomes where are we met, what's our target? You know what I mean? Not just an industrial, what's 14,000 square feet supposed to have?
Right,
But what's-
that was my question, is it something that would be told to me? Based on a square footage of actual space, is there a specific number of allocated spots that occupancy is supposed to have?
I'm asking about use, yeah.
Right. Because I know for a fact, we don't have a staff of employees. There might be, one person that works the front desk just to make sure the scheduling, very similar to ATI. Somebody at the front desk to make sure the schedule is taken care of, somebody handles the phones. And then your coaches of teams, maybe 2 or 3 at a time. Somebody comes in and teach private lessons. There might be, go ahead, I'm sorry.
No, I was just going to ask you, Marcus. So when you say you have 10 employees, not all 10 employees are there at every time you
No.
open?
There will almost never be 10 employees in the building.
Okay.
If I may answer this question through chair, there is number of parking formulas that we can use based on the descriptions of operations. And I can guarantee that you will not like any of them because they will bring these numbers too high for this property.
Right.
And because of that, the commission, luckily in the regulations, have the ability to actually consider what is it that you need in industrial zone and go from there, because the hard down number is you can look at this in industrial zone and assess it as per one space per square foot of a building or per employee or something like that. There is like a number of things, number of formulas that
It's
can
one,
be
it's one space per employee.
right. So
Marcus,
because
what's
of
what's
that-
your age group, Marcus?
13 to 18, 13 to
you
18.
want to stay away
So
from.
13 to 18, so you have 70% of the people who are gonna be dropping their kids off. Okay? They're not gonna be parking, they're gonna be dropping their kids off, not parking.
Okay.
You gotta keep that in mind.
Okay. Thank you,
So-
Dan. Go ahead, Renata.
So I was just going to, again, recommend, those are the options. So I would suggest that commission either considers now, you heard from the property owner, if that makes you confident, you can vote tonight, or you can keep the hearing open and then you can consider those options, like go talk to your neighbors, see what's on that site plan where we can add some spaces. Let's see what do we think that is needed, how can we do that?
Renata, with
Mr.
the, go ahead.
No, I was gonna say, Commissioner Claffey has some questions, I believe.
All right, go ahead, Commissioner Claffey.
I guess really I've just sat here and listened to everybody. And I guess I'm kind of going back to square one. Is this an issue of needing an approved site plan? Renata, you talk about needing a site plan for the parking plan. I'm looking at a site plan on the screen. I see a number of spots added. It seems like we're going in circle here. I don't disagree with Mr. Droz. I've gone to some other like-minded facilities like this, and it becomes a parking nightmare. So I see the concern as a TPZ member. I see the concern when I've used facilities like this with my boys. So where are we? Because it seems like we're going round and round for the past 20 minutes on this.
Thank you.
Thank you. So as the property owner has already stated for the record, another 25 parking spaces are going to be available. Renata, you don't think that's enough for, plus the ones that there wasn't all of them weren't taken when you were there. There, you said about 80% of them. So there was 20% that was still available. And once this new tenant moves in, then the property owner is going to correct the situation. Basically, the property owner and the tenant have to work together, and this business can only be as big as the parking provides. And the landlord has already stated that 25 of those cars are only there because the space isn't rented to someone else yet. And those 25 cars will be gone when this new tenant takes over. So I'm familiar with the area. I think that it has enough parking. But I'll open it up to the commission one more time before we go to a public.
Good question.
Go right ahead.
As someone who frequents other establishments, not baseball related, but we have another facility in Newington, the hockey rinks. And I will say this, you get a couple events over there. And I know hockey is different than this sport. I get it, but they're calculated a certain way to get parking. So I don't see why we don't take this building, how it gets divided up. I mean, there has to be some calculation, Renata, correct me if I'm wrong, of people who come to the facility. If you get 15 boys or girls, whomever, softball, baseball, whatever, to this facility, there should be a calculation of occupant load for this building, not just on if a parent decides to drop their kid off and go run their errands. So I can see both sides of the concern here, but if you get, two teams to come do batting practice, that's say 11 kids per team, that's 22 kids. So why are we not just taking the whole building, dividing up by how many tenants and say, okay, if you want all these facilities in this square footage, this is how many parking spaces you need. Is that right or wrong?
Mr. Chair, is this question?
I'm directing it at Renata because I'm still kind of confused.
So
when
I will say that I choose to interpret the regulation this way because he has about 2 hours based on this letter where there is any kind of perhaps conflict. Other than that, the hours of operation of these businesses are completely non-together. So I would prefer to use everything in my regulations that allows me to actually efficiently utilize this site so that it can actually be used more than, just parked.
Okay.
So that is why I allow the commission to use their regulations the way they can.
Okay. All right. I just wanted clarification for me. Thank you. That's all, Commissioner or Chairman.
If there's no objection, since this is a public hearing, I'd like to go to the public.
Before you do that, there are a couple of more questions, Mr. Chair, Mr. Woods and Mr. Linares.
Go ahead, Mr. Woods.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. In light of the statement from the property owner who appears to be occupying a good part of this space prior to his tenant moving in and plans on vacating it, and by the statement that our planner said that when she went there today, she was hoping that some of the spaces would not be filled, and it looks like they won't be now. So I'm relatively comfortable looking to move this forward, but I would like to finish the hearing also to see that make sure nobody is against it, or if there's someone who's willing to speak in favor of it after the applicant is done.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Linares.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Going round and around and hearing everybody, I think you have to agree that it seems like a perfect storm with some of the parking issues or potential that could be here, with Mr. Garofalo saying that the utilized parking are
his employees that won't be there once the occupant is there, those are going to be vacated. I was at this site. I'm very familiar with this end of town and this end of the cul-de-sac. There's an enormous amount of space. Yes, they're not lined, but most of it, or a lot of it is. And I don't think what we're hearing from Mr. Hill is there's not going to be games upon games there. This is a training facility where probably a lot of the times there'll be single players, groups of players, but not 2-3 teams at once. Now, yes, there could be some times where there's some overlapping, but he had mentioned that through his scheduling, that he would manage that for his own benefit as well. So it seems like the utilization of this building to revive this area, it seems like a great fit with what's going on. So I'd be in favor of this, comfortable about it. So hopefully, without hearing any objection from the public, who knows, we'll see what happens. I feel totally comfortable with this.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner Lars. Is there any other?
And by the way, I encourage it because it's utilization of a building that's pretty much empty at this point. And we do focus on that once in a while here.
Thank you, Commissioner Lenars. Appreciate your comments. Is there any other commissioners that'd like to make a statement or a question before I go to the public? Okay, hearing none. This is a public hearing. We'll go to the public. Is there anybody wishing to speak in favor of this application?
No one has their hand raised on the Zoom, Mr. Chairman?
Okay. Is there anybody wishing to speak in opposition to this application?
Again, no one has their hand raised in Zoom or in the room.
Okay. All right, so commissioners, we have to make a decision whether or not we want to leave this open or and try to revisit the parking, or whether or not each person is comfortable with it and like to close the public hearing.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that we close petition 3622 and move it to old business for possible action tonight.
Okay, we have a motion on the
So moved.
floor. We have a
Second.
from Commissioner Lenars. Any questions? All those in favor? Aye. Anyone opposed?
Against for keeping it open. I'm against closing it tonight. I'd like it to
You're-
stay open.
You'd like to stay open, okay. Is there anybody else? Okay, very good. So the, this petition will be closed and moved to old business. Okay, the next public hearing is,
You're done, Marcus.
next petition is petition 39-22, special permit, section 3.4.4 for a home occupation business, portrait studio at 24 Atwood Street. Applicant owner contact Beth Reed. The applicant there?
I'm here. Good evening. My name is Beth Reed. I reside at 24 Atwood Street in Newington. I've been there for about 8 years. My business is called Beth Marie Photography. And I've also been in business for about 7 years. I currently am a doula. If you don't know what a doula is, it's someone who assists in births alongside a midwife. And I'm sorry, I'm nervous. I'm also a photographer, so I photograph births. Those mainly happen in hospitals, birthing centers, and in home. But then I also offer newborn photo shoots. For several reasons, sometimes I can miss a birth, and sometimes the parents just want newborn photos. So I will do those either in a studio setting or in home with the family. I did have a studio in Bristol, but it was in a factory, and a lot of people smoked, and I didn't want to bring babies into an atmosphere where people were smoking. So I closed it. It's not there anymore. It just wasn't working out, but I would like to move it to my home because it's safe and clean. And I just think it would be a really good atmosphere to work out of.
Okay, very good. Do any commissioners have any questions? for the applicant? Hearing none, if Renata, if you could do a staff report?
I think Eric will do the staff report.
Thank you.
I
So-
mean, go ahead. Her business is to take pictures of babies. I mean, come on, you people.
Right, what's triggering this is really the coming and going of people and the parking. So that's what triggers the special permit request. I think it's a decent use in that neighborhood. I don't see any issues. I haven't had any calls or anybody with public to, inquire about it. The parking seems ample there. The studio, as she's kind of laid it out, is not taking up, a huge amount of space in the house. And it's going to be probably for newborns, I would imagine 1 hour photo shoot or something along those lines, depending on how
Depending
cranky
on
they may
how-
be.
yeah.
And you
How
have
much
to
they cry.
regulate the noise. You have to regulate the noise.
So, I don't, and it's not like she's gonna be queuing up 4 or 5 people at a time. It's, maybe 2 cars coming with family members, I would assume. So,
I limit it to only the family. I don't usually allow extended family to be a part of it, mainly because the mother has just given birth and can't really accommodate extra people anyway, so.
so that's it.
So we are in support of this.
Yes.
I just have a role of a meanie,
Surprise,
so I
surprise.
want to have Eric.
Okay, well, let's go right to the public if there's no objections. Is there anybody from the public wishing to speak in favor of this application?
No one in Zoom has their hand raised and no one in the room.
Is there anybody wishing to speak in opposition to this?
Again, no one on Zoom or in the room with their hand raised.
Okay, I'll entertain a motion to close this petition and move it to old business.
Yeah,
Make a
Mr. Chairman,
motion
I
that
make
we, well, go ahead.
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
Make a motion that we close this and move it to old business for action tonight.
Okay, we have a motion from the vice chairman. Do we have a second?
Second?
Second by Commissioner Havens. Any discussion? All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Anyone opposed? Okay, unanimously, it'll be moved over to old business. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, next thing on the agenda is the approval of minutes. Approval of minutes of September 14th, 2022. I'll entertain a motion.
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Motion made by Commissioner Havens. Do I have a second? Seconded
Second.
by
Woods.
Commissioner Woods. Thank you. Is there any discussions or corrections on minutes?
I know.
Hearing no discussion or corrections. All those in favor? Aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries to approve the minutes of September 14th, 2022. Next thing on the agenda is new business. We don't have anything. We'll go to old business. And the first petition is petition 36-22, special permit, section 3.17.6 for recreational use, Training Institute gym in the industrial I zone at 385 Stam Road. Applicant, Pro Performance Network owner, RPG Stam LLC. Contact Kevin Rival. Is there anyone that would like to entertain a motion?
Hey, Mr. Chairman, I would make a motion that we approve petition 36-22, special permit, section 3.17.6 for recreational use, Training Institute and gym at 385 Stam Road. Applicant, Pro Performance Network, owner, RPG Stam LLC. Contact Kevin Rival.
Okay. Motion made Do we have a second?
Second.
Seconded by Commissioner Lenars, I believe.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Any discussion or questions? Noreen, would you do a roll call, please?
Commissioner Claffey,
Nay.
Commissioner Haggerty,
Yes.
Commissioner Havens,
Yes.
Commissioner Linares,
Yes.
Commissioner Trister,
Yes.
Commissioner Woods.
Yes.
Okay, Chairman Payne.
Yes. Okay,
There are more members.
Tom's an alternate tonight.
Oh, sorry.
No, there's no alternates.
6-1, right?
You have 6
Yeah.
in favor and 1 opposed.
Thank you very much. So this passes. I wish him the best of luck there, and hopefully that there won't be any problems over there. And if there is, then they'll just have to take corrective action. But I think it's a great business for the area, and I wish both partners a lot of success. Our next petition on old business is petition 39-22, special permit, section 3.4.4 for a home occupation business, portrait studio at 24 Atwood Street. Applicant and owner contact Beth Reed. I'll entertain a motion for that.
So move, Mr. Chairman.
Motion made by Commissioner Havens for approval. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Commissioner Lenars.
Yes.
Yes, sir.
I'm sorry. Okay, any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Anyone opposed? Motion is unanimous. Congratulations, and wish you the best at your home business there. All right, Renata, we have a couple things for petitioning for schedule.
Yes, so we have 2 special hearings or special permit hearings scheduled for the property at 751 Russell Road. That is the property that has been approved for several developments before, and people are probably quite familiar. It's on the top of the hill out there. What is the name of that factory that used to be there
Jensen,
before? Jansen, yes, Jansen machine, right.
which is still operational there.
Correct.
Yeah, so anyway, so they're proposing an electronic vehicles showroom. They're proposing a gas station and a car wash in that location. So there will be a special permit for drive-through restaurant, which is going to be within
In the gas station.
within the gas station, and there will be proposal for, what is the second special permit?
That's for the auto-related use for the EV
Auto-related
showroom
use for the EV showroom.
and a site plan.
Right, but that's not the hearing.
Correct.
So that's also coming up. So tentative schedule for that has actually changed. I was first thinking we're gonna have that at the next meeting, but now we're looking at first meeting in November for scheduling for that. So first meeting in November, we'll be looking into those applications.
All right, very good. Town planners report?
Yeah, so I have a couple of things. First of all, we sent letters out. And if you remember, before I went home, I talked to you about zoning regulation changes, and actually our staff presented some concept text ideas for B zone. Meanwhile, we also worked on thinking on what we should do with the downtown zone. We haven't really done any changes. but we have scheduled a listening session for the commission for the next meeting. So your next meeting on October 12 will start at 6:30. We sent 200 letters to the downtown business owners and business operators. So we actually sent letters to pretty much everybody. We will also have our liaison help us, spread that message at the town council meeting tomorrow night. And I will issue a news flash to just make sure that we get the word out. But the idea is to get people into the room and ask them what they like, what they don't like about our regulations, like what they find challenging, like what is the problem for them. Are they tenants perhaps leaving because they have some kind of issue with signage? Are they tenants leaving because of something? Like I want to hear what, as far as zoning regulation, is problematic for people so that we know what to focus on as we are doing these changes. Now, I kind of intuitively think I know some of this stuff, which is what we sort of started working on with the B zone, but still we will invite people from the business zone as well and ask them, what is problem for them as well, to see, are we on the right track? Are we can't do this without, talking to people. It's just not going to be a good enough product. So, so that's happening on the 12th, and then we will talk about the date for the B zone. We will just do this listening session for all of the zoning districts.
Right.
And then the other thing that I was gonna,
And by the way, I left each of you a copy of the letter, so you have it.
and there is no other thing. That's it. That's the only thing I wanted to say, actually,
Okay.
before we move to frog letters.
I think the having people coming in to talk to us about the regulations and what helps them is an excellent idea, and looking forward to it. Any questions from the commissioners? Okay, we'll move on to communications. We have any questions concerning the communications? Everybody got the CROG letters? I'm not
So
sure. if there's-
my other thing was about these CROG letters. So I will direct your attention to letters from Berlin and letters from Stafford. And if you look at these two, you will see that CROG actually, in letter from Stafford, used couple of things that are somewhat unusual. And I just want to kind of like raise your attention to these matters, because this is going to be important to us coming up too, as we are working on our regulations and later on POCD stuff. They have the staffer, for example, they were doing adoption of the plan of conservation and development. They used apparently in their POCD language that referred to community character. They had used language that talked about some kind of tapestry segmentation, which implied something that had to do with, certain income population. So CROG directed, like balked at that, like right away, and talked about that. This is the first time I've ever seen them actually comment like publicly in a letter like that. But this is against statutes, and they're kind of like raising these issues up right now. Berlin, they are being advised against exclusionary language when Berlin is doing something with their planned residential infill regulation, and whatever they're doing with their like regulation in that, CROG is saying they're using some kind of exclusionary language. So those were just the two comments that I thought were kind of interesting in this batch.
All right, very good. Thank you, Renata, for bringing that to our attention. Is there any questions for Renata? All right, we'll move on to public participation. If there's somebody out there within the Zoom application, raise your hand if you'd like to participate during public participation. If calling into Zoom meeting by telephone, dial *9 to raise your hand to be recognized. Use *6 recognized to speak by telephone, and please state your name and address for the record. Is there anybody either in the room or on Zoom that would like to participate in public hearing, public commission?
No one has their hand raised, Mr. Chairman. I think Gail would like to speak in the room.
Okay, go right ahead, Gail. How are you?
Good, thanks. Gail Woodrigo, 21 Isabel Terrace. I just want to comment on the outreach effort that you're making to the businesses in downtown. I think is fantastic. I was just wondering if, because some of the, not all the business owners, perhaps will be able to attend, because they're maybe they're operational during those hours or they have other commitments. Is there an opportunity to either write a response or to phone in?
Yes, they can do either. We also gave them an email address in the letter so they can send comments or questions to us.
And then also, did you do any outreach or did you notify the chamber?
I believe the chamber has an office on there, so I believe they got one. We can certainly send it over again.
Because they might, have either input from their own, or I know that they do weekly meetings at 7 in the morning, you might want to attend one of those meetings. But anyways, I think it's a great effort and I'm curious to see how many will show up. Thanks.
Thank you, Gail. Anybody else?
Doesn't appear so, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, thank you, Eric. Any remarks from commissioners?
I have a question, Mr. Chairman.
Go right ahead.
Last meeting, there was a discussion about parking RVs, trailers, whatnot in side yards versus backyards versus restrictions. And was there a plan on rehashing that discussion?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yep, go right ahead, Renata.
We are working on that. The staff is revising based on the last discussion. We haven't reached, I guess, the draft that we are like satisfied or ready to show to you yet. So we're working on it.
Yeah. Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions from commissioners? All right. Hearing none, I think we're all set. Thank you very much for bearing with me, being on Zoom. I appreciate it. And I'll entertain a motion to adjourn if there's nothing.
So moved.
Okay, we're adjourned. Thank you very much, everybody. Good night. Have a good night.
All right.
Marcus wasn't good at taking hints.
It's okay. It's, if there is an issue, it's going to be for like few hours. And I just hope it doesn't bug like the other guy. That comes.
It could be a problem.
Okay.
I'm gonna get wood. Yeah, woods, you're in.